Well, hello everyone. This is Mike Lowe, and this is Line Weight, a new videocast series about the Detroit Lions. And what you were looking at here on the screen, on the bottom of the screen, is PFF's website here, detailing their predicted amount of cap space, which is perhaps far less than you realized at an approximated $5.7 million. That's the entire cap space that PFF is predicting. So we're going to get into that, plus much, much more on this second episode here of Line Weight. I appreciate all the positive response that I've heard on the first episode. It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. With the weekend here, I figured, hey, what the heck? Got my stuff done for the weekend, and let's jump in and do a second episode here. So that's exactly what we're doing. Yesterday I started the episode just kind of talking about my background in gaming and kind of streaming with starting like that. And I didn't really talk much about my background as a Lions fan. And so I wanted to take a couple of minutes to do that before we got into today's agenda. But I was born and raised in Detroit, the suburbs, downriver specifically, and have been a Lions fan pretty much since I don't know, I must have been 9 or 10 or so. And I remember it was probably my godfather, of all people. I remember just being over at a little family function and just hearing him screaming like, "Go Barry, go! Go Barry, go!" So something, Barry Sanders having an epic long run, and just remember thinking, "Wow, that's cool and that's pretty colorful on the TV," and just got hooked. And had been a Lions fan all through college, undergraduate degree at Eastern Michigan, and I remember having draft parties with my buddies, and driving out to different universities to watch the draft. And I've moved around for quite a bit now. Lived in Chicago for 11 years, lived in Austin, Texas for a little bit, have been in San Diego now twice, and just a huge Lions fan. So I wanted to at least introduce myself again and just kind of tell you where I'm coming from, because I miss the Lion community. There's every city I've been in, Austin, for instance, had a really cool Lions meetup and stuff where people would get together and watch the games, but I miss it. And so this is an opportunity for me to try and get back a little bit, and also it helps me to learn and really kind of dive deep into the draft and some other things with all of that. So so we're going to dive in here in just a second. Again, if you would like, please subscribe to that YouTube channel. That's awesome. I've got a bunch of new subscribers here the past 24 hours. So again, thank you for that. I'm on Twitter at MikeLow47. And yeah, we're gonna jump in. You can see on the side there, we do have an agenda. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted just to kind of rebuttal with my first live draft that we did, because I'm not ashamed of it or anything. I like it. I researched the picks. I think they're good picks. I stand by it. But as you may recall, we drafted a lot of offensive linemen, which, hey, I like offensive linemen, but perhaps it was just a little bit too much there focused on that. And I think the biggest reason why I want to use a mulligan, so to speak, on this is that we didn't really go into an off-season plan. We jumped into the draft in episode 1 as if there was no free agency, and that's not exactly realistic. And so that's what we're going to do today, is kind of go through and talk about what that might look like. So let's actually start there. I showed this screen before, right? And this is, again, just kind of a recap of the Lions off-season on PFF, Pro Football Focus. And it shows their predicted cap space and the soon-to-be unrestricted free agents and things like this. And there's a lot of detail here we can get into. But I think what I wanted to look at was a link that they have called overthecap.com. Because before we even talk about anything, I think it's really, and this is an interesting looking website, but I think what I wanted to do is just take a look and see, okay, so what could the Detroit Lions cap space look like? They have a really nice tool. They have a lot of nice tools on this website, even though it's not the prettiest. Let me make this full screen so you can see a little bit better. So there are a handful of different little things you can do here, but this one, it allows us to go through and make some cuts. Now, I won't worry with the details. I think a lot of the cuts that you're probably thinking of are ones that I would make, such as Desmond Trufant, which we'll get to. So right now, we're negative $9 million, and this is already taking into account the Jared Goff trade. So we're negative $9 million. We don't have $9 million to spend. We have less. We have negative $9 million to spend. So there's obviously some cuts that this team's going to have to make. Desmond Trufant is an easy one. Now, we're not going to do any of these like June 1st cuts because just to save the long story, That would roll some of the cap hit into the 2022 season, which a lot of teams do. Personally, I don't like doing that. It's kind of like taking credit or taking a loan out. I'm just not a big fan of it. If you can pay cash, do it, right? So I kind of apply the same policy to the football team here. This is going to be a rough year, 2021. There's no reason to keep sacrificing future years. Let's just, give me the shot in the arm and let's just go. There are some other guys we could consider. I know that I've seen some people say, hey, Jamie Collins, but look, you're not gaining anything. You're actually losing money. Jamie Collins is still a decent player. We'll look at his PFF score in this episode, but he's okay. And if Lions are switching to a 4-3 defense, he's going to be a good fit for that. He's not a bad player. Very, very athletic guy, pretty good in coverage still. Yeah, probably makes a little bit more money than we want to pay him, but it does us no good because we would essentially, and I'll just use Jamie Collins as an example for any player, but we would essentially be creating another hole on the roster and not getting anything in return for it. We would be paying him, approximately $325,000 against the cap just to go away. So we're going to be keeping him. Justin Coleman is a tweener. I could see the argument for or against cutting him. I know a lot of people will look and say, oh, Halapuli Vaitai is a guy that needs to be cut. He was bad, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he had a rough year, but he's not a bad player. When they got him from the Eagles, he was good. He was hurt last year. Not to mention, yes, I'd like to give him another shot, but again, he would cost us $4 million in cap space just for him to go away. So we lose $4 million and we lose him off the roster. He can't be cut this year. It's just not going to make any sense. Jesse James, nice guy, it seems, cut. I'm going to keep Nick Williams, similar to Justin Coleman. I kind of have asterisks around these guys. I could see the Lions cutting them to free space, but they will open up holes, and I also think they're players that could bounce back. Chase Daniels, I'm cutting. And I'm cutting Danny Shelton, who, again, isn't a bad player, but I don't see him as a 4-3 lineman. He's a little bit too big. He's more of a nose tackle, and I don't think the Lions are going to be doing that. So between him and Nick Williams, he was the one that I cut. I'm going to be cutting Christian Jones. And, again, you could also put an asterisk around cutting Joe Dahl. That would free up almost $3 million. That would not surprise me. But, again, if it just creates another hole at guard, it's not really doing a whole lot. So just in doing those, we freed up about $7 million in cap space. I can save you the math here. If we were to cut some of these other guys, we could just about double that. So I would say the Lions are going to have between 7 and, 14, maybe 15, maybe, in order to field a team, right? And so that's not a lot of money. And again, a lot of that's from the Stafford deal. I love the deal the Lions got. Let me just put this out here. Two things about that trade. I love the deal they got for Stafford, but I also love Stafford. I love Stafford. I personally would not have traded him. It was not something I was looking to do. However, I was never expecting an offer like that. So I can see where it makes some sense for the Lions to move on for him. The big downside of it, especially this year, is the massive cap hit. So we take a huge cap hit for paying the bonus out to Stafford now, but we also take a huge cap hit for taking the base salary of Jared Goff, which is not cheap. And that's the reason why the Lions got an extra first-round pick. As I mentioned on episode 1, we scratched their back, they scratched ours by giving us an extra first-round pick. So it's a nice deal, especially for the future, but it does create problems right now heading into free agency 2021. So again, let's just take that number for now, and let's keep that number in mind, because what I am looking at, let me just show you what I did. So here I have the Lions depth chart. Now what you're looking at on this screen is the defense, right? So pretend this blue is the line of scrimmage, and I'll make this full screen here. You can see it a little bit better. And so here's the line of scrimmage is the blue, right? And you can see these are players, again, if we just took what I did not cut, essentially, right? This is what's left over. And we're not going to get into depth so much today, but there are some nice depth players too. There are some guys, but these would be the players that I could see as starting. These are guys who, and by the way, this is their 2020 PFF score. This is Julian Okwara, by the way, not Romeo. He's a free agent, so you're not going to see any free agents here. But, and I also have Walker at strong safety, but I would actually recommend putting him at free safety. Now, the reason I'm showing you this screen first and why I have Walker, in my opinion, even out of position, is this is what the defense looked like, minus a couple guys who aren't here, like Jerron Harmon and Vaitai still, Jelani Tavai is still on the team, but I didn't put him in this box. I don't really think he's deserving of it. So this is what the team looked like. Steve Flowers still had a good year. Deshaun Hand played more on the outside even, but his pass rush was pretty rough this year, but he still had a decent year, and I think he could slot inside. These guys have red around them because, as we saw in the previous screen, they're players that could be cut to free up space. For now, I didn't, because I don't want to create more holes that we're just going to fill with the same price salary. It just does us no good just yet. And so, but look at this tab here. So again, you look at these numbers, there's some bad numbers, right? Really bad numbers. Okudah, of course, had a rough year. 115th cornerback out of 121st PFF score. Oruwariye, 100th out of 121st. And Coleman, it says 11th. That might be a typo. I think he might have been 111th. So regardless, but let me click over to this ideal tab and let me show you what this is. Because when I look at topic 2, at the bottom there, I want to talk about the coaching in 2020 and how bad Matt Patricia's coaching staff was for the Detroit Lions, and how that's the bigger impact than the players that are currently on the roster. So let's go back to this, and let me click over to this tab. Now, we're looking at the defense again, but as I flip between these two, you're going to see the numbers change. You see a lot less yellow and orange, and you see a lot more of that blue and green, right? Now, what is this on this ideal tab? As we drink the Lions blue idealism Kool-Aid here. Well, what this is are the highest PFF scores that the current Lions on their roster have earned over the last 3 years, right? So going back to 2018. Now, again, is every single player going to have a career year in 2021? Of course not. But I think this gives us a nice snapshot of what the potential could be on this team. Now, you're also seeing, I think, just one extra name here, which I'll get into. You're seeing strong safety that I've slotted in, which I'll get to here in a little bit because that's part of my shopping list that we're going to talk about. But Keanu Neal is a guy that I could see the Lions getting that would fill a need. But let's start up there at safety. This potential ideal lineup would have Tracy Walker moving back to free safety, where, by the way, in 2018, he had a PFF score of 89.8. The dude was a beast, right? Jamie Collins stays where he's at. Again, he's always kind of floated around that high 60-ish range, topping out at that 72.3. I forget what year that was, but again, all of these are in the last 3 years. Oruwariye, of course, kind of had an inflated rookie year, but still played nice. Same thing with Coleman. As I mentioned, he's outlined in red because he could be a cap casualty. Coleman's overpriced. There's no question about it. But we're also we'd save $4 million, but you're kind of paying him $6 million to go away. It's kind of a weird thing, and I'd be curious just to see. Now, again, if the Lions snag a corner in the second round, they could probably cut Coleman and save that money, take the cap hit this year before June 1st, and then you're in a better position for next year. Because then his bonus money and all of that other stuff, the cap hit won't affect 2022. Now, of course, Julian Okwara would be in his second year. There wasn't really enough data to give him a PFF score. And Okudah, same thing. He doesn't really have a high because he only has that really, really bad year. So those are both second-year players. Okwara, early third-round pick. Of course, Okudah, the number 3 pick in the draft in 2020. So you'd expect these guys to come in and play it, especially if Okwara can stay healthy. Okudah could be the biggest surprise on this team in 2021. This dude is not bad. He is not a bad player. And he still showed flashes of being a really solid guy in coverage. And I think with the new coaching scheme, Aaron Glenn is his new defensive coordinator, I think we're going to see some really positive changes across the board. So again, are these numbers optimistic? Yeah, for sure. They're very blue Kool-Aid-ish. However, they're not. They're probably, or at least potentially, closer than the numbers we see here by using players in bad situations, by having bad schemes, by having bad play calling, predictable play calling. We heard quarterbacks like Mitchell Trubisky saying we knew what they were doing and things like this, right? Well, guess what happens when that happens? You get scores like this, right? When you play Tracy Walker to a position he's not as comfortable in. And he still did a pretty good job against the run, but he's a much better free safety. He's built for that. He's got great size for free safety. So anyway, this is the potential of what the defense for the Lions in 2021 could be. What's most important is in this, because again, the Lions only have 6 draft picks, right? This allows them some flexibility where they're not forced to go get a defensive tackle. They're not forced to get a rushing end. They're not forced to get a corner. And so it affords them a year to kind of sort things out a little bit, see what this coaching staff can do, right? So that's on defense. If we scroll down here on the offense, this is the 2020 PFF scores, and then again, players currently under contract, where I would put them. So let's start at the offensive line. We know we have Ragnow, Decker. These guys have been good. They've continually have been good players. These are, again, scores from last year. These aren't terrible scores. Joe Dahl, Crosby, Vaitai, again, guys you could slot on the offensive line. We have Dahl highlighted in red. Maybe he's a cut, right? That makes sense. But we just don't know. If we had to go with Dahl, there are worse things in the world. Of course, Hawkinson, Pro Bowl tight end. Notice there's nobody here at wide receiver 1. Goff, of course, at quarterback, and DeAndre Swift. And there are some players you're not seeing here. Kerryon Johnson, who, by the way, could be a trade candidate. He's got a cap hit of, I think, a few million if we go back to this screen here. So he's down here. Kerryon Johnson, who I like a lot. And I certainly like having 2 backs who can play. And again, I know it sounds like Dan Campbell's going to run the ball a lot. So where did he go? There's Swift. Yeah, so Kerryon Johnson's got you're not saving a ton, right? 1.36. Of course, if you get a guy like in the 4th or 5th round or something who's a running back, sure. But I mean, but again, now you're wasting a draft pick on his replacement, and you're only saving, you're gonna take a $700,000 hit. You're gonna save under 1.4 million. So it helps, but you have to pay that rookie, right? So that rookie is gonna take up probably 400,000 or so, 500,000 of that. So you're only saving about $1 million. And Kerryon Johnson's a good player, so I'm not in a big rush to get rid of him. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that because there's some other depth that you're not seeing here. I like Henry, the tight end, and so they have some other guys there. Where's he at? Who I was just talking about? I want to show you. Yeah, I'm sorry, Hunter Bryant. I said Henry. I was thinking Hunter Henry. But Hunter Bryant I like as another tight end option. He's not much of a blocker, so they probably want to still bring in a guy who can block. But anyway, there's some depth here that can work. So you may see Quinton Cephas at wide receiver 2. Now let me put an asterisk in your mind on what wide receiver 2 is in this offense. Because wide receiver 1, especially if the Lions go receiver in the 1st round, we know that's going to be one of the big guys, right? One of the big top 3-4 receivers / Pitts, who is essentially a receiver. So that's where he's going to be. I think if you slot a guy in, and I'll talk about him later, but I have Nelson Aguilar as a guy who could slot literally into the slot position for this team, and I think would do really well with Jared Goff and probably do so within our budget. So what does that do? We also have a Pro Bowl tight end. We have a running back who's very, very good receiving running back. Well, what this does for Cephas is this allows him to do what he does best, which is run deep. He's not super fast, but he can use his size, and he's not very big. I think he's 6'1", but he's pretty good at getting up, and he was a pretty good long ball, deep ball receiver. So in this offense, you have, let's just say, fictitious for now, stud wide receiver, Pro Bowl tight end, shifty Swift at running back, a very productive slot receiver potentially, and this isn't always the Aguilar you're thinking of who drops passes. He had a much, much better year last year when he was playing in the slot. And now you have Cephas, who is essentially like the 5th option? 1, 2, 3, 4. He's your 5th option here. Not to mention you could still bring in another rookie to kind of, maybe rotate in. Of course, you can bring in some street free agents, undrafted guys, and that sort of thing. But I'm okay going with Cephas in the quote-unquote wide receiver 2 spot because in this offense, he's more like your 5th option, right? He's going to run some deep balls and things like this, and that's not really Goff's game per se. Whereas I think Aguilar could be a good fit for this offense, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So again, just wanted to kind of show you there, this idealism. We looked at it on defense, but now let's do it on offense because that's what this little segment is talking about. So if we go down to offense, here's our line of scrimmage here in the blue. These are, again, using the last 3 years of PFF scores the current roster, players who are under contract, and how they could fit in to this team. Of course, Swift is in his second year, Cephas in his second year, not a whole lot to see as far as like career highs. But you'll see a lot of these, you don't see as many changes as I flip between these two. You see a little bit more green in the offensive line. And that's kind of one of the biggest telltale things for me is that, as I mentioned, Vaitai was hurt a lot last year. He's not as bad as he looked. Crosby's a very versatile offensive lineman. He can shift inside. I don't know if he can play the left side off the top of my head, but I know he's played these two positions, and he's played them fairly well. At the very least, he's a really nice backup to have. And so now again, am I gonna bet the farm on Vaitai here? No, not necessarily. But with this team, where they're at with the cap space they have, it's a gamble we kind of have to take. There's really no other choice because we can't cut this guy, and he's making way too much damn money to sit on the bench. So I think, again, it could work. I'm not saying it will. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid saying the Lions are 8-8 and going to sneak into the playoffs. I have no idea. Not all of this is going to work out on this idealistic tab, right? But I think the idea is it prevents the sky from falling on Lions fans a little bit, and it gives us some flexibility with the very, very small cap space we have. And again, truthfully, the very small number of options that this team will have, like every other team, to plug holes in the draft. You don't just pull 4 or 5 starters out of a draft typically, right? By the way, you can see Goff, right? 84.3 back in 2018. Last year, even in a rough year, 71.3, still respectable, 22nd in quarterbacks. Again, it's not great. It's certainly not what you're looking for, but I'm excited to see what he's capable of doing with the scenery change. I think it'll be interesting. By the way, Stafford was 15th in the league last year, at 14th, 15th, or 16th, somewhere in there, but essentially middle of the league. So when you think about what we got, and this is coming from someone, let me say it again, who is a huge Matthew Stafford fan. I love the dude. I loved him here. I loved watching him here out in California. I'll be rooting for him. I will be watching Rams games probably after Lions games to cheer him on. But to go from the 15th rated quarterback, just looking at that number in a bubble, by the way, right? But the 15th rated quarterback to the 22nd for what we got. And by the way, Goff's younger. It's not that bad. It's not a terrible trade-off, especially if you're kind of like a buy low, sell high kind of person. There's a lot of potential there that could happen. But I think what I really take out of this idealism tab here, guys, is Matt Patricia sucked as a coach. He was brutal, especially on defense. You can actually say, hey, the Lions did, they held their own on offense. We actually did. You don't see as much color, swapping here. They did all right. And of course, Galladay was in the mix, and Amendola and Marvin Jones. We had a good offense. There's no question. The offense was not the problem. But this defense, and again, I don't even have Jelani Tavai in here. His score was atrocious. I don't even know if it hit 50. It was like right around 50. Just unbelievably bad. Okuda, 42.5. Just a lot of holes here. And again, it's very optimistic to think that it's going to suddenly look like this, but it's possible, right? They moved Deshaun Hand more in the middle. This guy's 290-something pounds. He can play in the middle. He can create pass rush up the middle. Sorry, I'm not showing the screen here, but he can create pass rush up the middle where the Lions have lacked severely of getting any kind of pressure. Again, think back to the days of Ndamukong Suh. Think back even a few years ago with Deshaun Hand, who was doing that, getting some pressure up the middle. We even saw it a little bit. There's been a kind of a bevy of defensive tackles that we've kind of mixed in here, right? Ashawn Robinson had some up and down years, and Snacks Harrison was able to even provide some pressure up the middle. But you can really feel a difference in the defense when that's missing, right? It's a huge, huge, huge difference. So yeah. Anyway, just wanted to talk about that and just kind of show you just that coaching, because I think that's just such a crazy part to this, of just kind of seeing where this can go. So where does that take us then? It takes us to a little bit of shopping at this point before we get into our next PFF draft, because this one will be a little bit of a different approach. And let me show you where I spent this. Let's just call it, I don't know, 10 million or so. Like I said, it's going to be somewhere between 7.5, maybe up to 15 on the high end. You know, first, honorable mention, I, like many others, I see the connection with John Johnson III, who is a free safety for the Rams. I think he would be a fantastic addition. I'm sorry, he's a free safety, but a fantastic addition. It would really give you two strong safeties on the Lions. He's one of the better safeties available. Played for the Rams, so there's a connection with Brad Holmes, but he alone is going to be commanding a salary probably close to 15 million, right? So I don't know if he's going to be a fit per se, but a guy who could be a fit is Keanu Neal. And again, we're looking within our budget. By the way, I'll scroll up here and show you before we get into Keanu Neal. So here's John Johnson, who I was just mentioning. So he's commanding 14 million. I mean, he's got really great scores over the last few years, kind of a down 19, but he's produced 280 plus. This guy would be great. It would bump Tracy Walker back to strong safety, most likely, which is not his, in my opinion at least, not his best position. But nonetheless, it's still if you have an opportunity to bring a guy like this in, you can. But this would cash them out completely. We would be completely cashed out. Now, it's still possible they might do it, but for this exercise and for our next mock draft that we're going to do, I went with Keanu Neal, who is about a third of that price. And it says, a former first-round pick, Neal found his home immediately as a traditional strong safety in the Falcons' cover 1, cover 3 scheme. He made an impact from day one, flying around the field in the run game and showing good range against underneath routes when playing zone. Unfortunately, injuries limited Neal to just 213 snaps across 18 and 19, but he was healthy once again in 2020, grading out at 68.2. Neal is a classic box safety who does his best work around the line of scrimmage and in the middle of the field, and his future team should look for him to play a similar role. Well, that's exactly where I have him on this ideal tab, right? So we would move him to strong safety. If you look at his highest number here in the last 3 years, it's 68.2, and it would allow Walker to move back over. And it would all come at about, roughly, according to PFF, about $5 million a year on just a 2-year deal for a player who's only 25. Perfect transition player. Gives you a couple years to potentially open up. If you kind of land on something in the draft, if something falls to you, great. You could always cut Neal even for that second year. You could let the rookie kind of sit beneath him. It literally gives you 2 extra years to find a strong safety that you'd want to move into the team for the future. So really, really like Keanu Neal as a fit. There were some other players I was looking at as well. Xavier Woods is a nice player out of the Cowboys, former 6th-round pick. But I don't think that he's a free safety, first of all. And so I would rather keep Walker at free safety. And again, Keanu Neal would allow us to do that. And Neal would slot really nicely, and that's why I have him highlighted in green. He's this would be a if we sign him kind of highlighting there. But I think that would make a lot of sense for the Lions to get Keanu Neal on defense. So that leaves us just about the same amount of money on offense, right? There's not a whole lot that we get to do here on offense, but let's just take a look and see what I did. As I mentioned, Nelson Aguilar. There are a few receivers. So these are kind of like outside receivers. I see Curtis Samuel, nice player, but I think that would I don't really think Cephas is going to succeed in the slot as much as he would on the outside. And so Curtis Samuel, plus he's a little expensive, as is Watkins. I said, these guys would be nice. Watkins could play anywhere. So could Perriman, so could Bourne. These guys could really filter in nicely. But for me, I went with Nelson Aguilar, and I'll show you why. First off, to go to Curtis Samuel, let's scroll up to him. We'd be pushing the bank a little bit, right? We'd have to make a few more cuts to bring him in. I like this guy. He's put up some nice scores. He's 24 years old. I mean, hey, if the Lions got Curtis Samuel, I would not complain. He'd be a great guy to mix in. But he doesn't have a ton of speed, which is something – I'm sorry, he actually does. This is the reason why I do like him. He would add some speed to the Lions. He had a 4.31 40. A little undersized, but again, it would work out really well with Jared Goff. So, hey, if you want to argue and tell me, hey, we got to go Curtis Samuel, I'm on board. We just got to free up a few million more dollars, it looks like. He's only 24 and a half years old. That would work out. But for this exercise, I went with Nelson Aguilar, who, trust me, at first look, I thought the first thing you are probably thinking that, oh, this guy drops passes. Oh, this guy's a few years older. But let's read about Nelson Aguilar here. It says, it's been a career of inconsistency for Aguilar, who has been good in 2 of his 5 years, with 3 other seasons being marred by drop passes and disappointing production. However, Aguilar was an excellent slot receiver for the Eagles in 2017, as Philadelphia quarterbacks had a 114.5 passer rating when targeting him. His 2020 campaign with Las Vegas has netted similar production, so he's done this twice now, albeit in a different role. Aguilar has become a legitimate downfield threat for the Raiders, posting career highs in yards and touchdowns, while dwarfing his career yards per reception number with a 17.9 mark. That's fantastic. The question is whether Aguilar can sustain his success, and that question is better asked of him in a complementary role rather than a feature one. So again, slot. $7.5 million. If you're thinking that's a lot for a slot receiver, you probably just haven't been watching much NFL cap numbers over the years, because a slot receiver they're a starter in today's NFL. $7.5 million is not terrible. It's also not a huge difference from what we saw up here with Curtis Samuel. It's just $1 million difference. So again, either of these guys could be really, really nice fits. I just see Samuel as being more of an outside receiver versus Aguilar, who can move inside, thus freeing up Cephas to still fit in this offense. And again, for me, it's all about trying to limit the number of holes that this team needs to fill, right? And I think by finding a home for Cephas, it can help this team. And I still think Cephas can be a quote-unquote wide receiver 2 as a sort of 4th, 5th option in the passing game. So Aguilar would kind of be, even though he's the slot guy, he would be higher in the pass tree for and a really good fit, again, being in that slot for Jared Goff. So we look at Aguilar here, 4.42. So again, he's still got some nice speed, decent size there, and I could see him being a nice fit. I know a lot of people have connected. Again, I mentioned Sammy Watkins. The number worried me. There were some other guys here. I like Perryman, but again, $8 million. We're starting to get up there a little bit. I liked. I'm going to come back to Josh Reynolds. I like Kendrick Bourne. Again, just some consistent guys here. So really, any of these guys could be nice players that you could fall into the slot. I know a lot of people really like Josh Reynolds. Again, there's that Rams connection. It says the Rams turned to Josh Reynolds when one of their primary receivers was out due to injury, and thanks to playoff runs, he has been on the field for at least 750 snaps in 2 of the past 3 seasons. It's nice. His grades have been remarkably consistent in the 60s, but rarely has he looked like a true difference maker as opposed to simply a bit part depth player. So again, nice player, real nice size, decent speed, but to me, this is just kind of pedestrian stuff. I honestly think you might get similar. Well, let me say, I think Josh Reynolds, in my opinion, just looking at this, even though he does come in at a nice price, and again, for the record, would not surprise me one bit if the Lions do sign this guy because of the connection to the Rams. But for me, I still think Cephas could be closer to production than Josh Reynolds. And I'm not saying they're the same player, but I'm saying from a production standpoint, I think I could get similar production out of Quintez Cephas than I could by getting a guy like any of these other slot guys I mentioned. So whether it's Aguilar, whether it is even Sammy Watkins, although that's unlikely, Brashad Perryman, or Kendrick Bourne, right? So anyway, point of this all being, this is the shopping list that I came up with that I think could make a lot of sense for the Lions heading into the draft. So as we look at this ideal chart again, and I'll make it full screen so you can see a little bit better, let's just say this is how it went. Let's just say we have not cut Joe Dahl yet on offense, but we signed Aguilar. So what does this leave us? A huge hole at wide receiver 1, and then some spots that we could upgrade. Again, these are idealistic ratings over the last 3 years. Not all of these are going to be this high, right? So again, in the second round, if we see a right guard, right tackle, or a left guard, something like that, a center we can move over, yeah, that's fair game. We could cut Joe Dahl or keep him, whatever. Certainly some options here. If we see even a receiver in the second round, do we grab him? Well, maybe. It would depend. It would kind of bump Cephas down. Certainly, if we don't get one in the first round, that could make some sense. Again, obviously, quarterback is something you could consider, but to me, I'm very curious to see what Jared Goff can do here in a new situation. On defense, we've plugged in the strong safety hole, and that's about it. We still have a pretty big hole at linebacker. So when we start thinking about names like Micah Parsons, I mean, yeah, he fits into this really well. As much as I even said on the first mock draft that we did, I said, I don't know, character issues, I'm worried. I don't know if they're going to take a guy like Parsons. Now that I look at this, and by the way, I know Chris Spielman came out this week and was saying, like, hey, you build NFL teams different than when I was in the league. We used to build them from the inside out, offensive line, and guys who can run in space and make tackles and blah, blah, blah. And now you build it from the outside. It's cornerbacks and it's receivers. And he's right to an extent, but I also wonder how much of that is a bluff. When I first heard that coming from Chris Spielman, my genuine first thought was, oh my gosh, the Lions are taking Micah Parsons and he's distracting away from that. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I know there's some off the field issues there, but I mean, I think, hey, when I was in my young 20s, would I have had stuff that could have been classified as off the field issues? Probably, right? I think most of us do. I mean, maybe there's certainly some big extreme things, and not trying to at all dismiss or downplay, hazing incidents, bullying, all that stuff. That stuff's real and it's scary and it's not cool. But I'm not expecting every single person I draft to be a perfect human being. That's just not a realistic thing. So I would want to do my homework on that. But anyway, Micah Parsons fits really well into this. What else? A defensive end could fit really well into this. If Okwara, again, is always having trouble with injuries, it seems like. Even a corner, we could cut Coleman. Again, I like Awarie kind of on the outside, but getting a slot corner could be a nice fit. There's definitely some guys in this draft who could fit that. An interior defensive lineman, absolutely something on my list that could make a lot of sense for the Lions to generate some pass rush up the middle. I mean, imagine if we got a really strong defensive interior lineman who could generate pass rush next to Deshaun Hand, next to Trey Flowers. I mean, just like that, you go to a pretty dominant defensive line. Again, new coaching scheme and that sort of thing. It could really, really help these guys. Of course, I think Okuda's going to bounce back nicely. So that's what we're looking like heading into this, round two, of our draft. And so as we look at that shopping budget, again, it's not a lot there. We're talking, let's call it $8 to $15 million, and 15 is being quite generous. There are some other ways that the team can get creative, but I think genuinely, you're not going to see huge splashes, in my opinion, with the Lions this year. So where we could see some huge splashes, though, would be in the draft. And that's where we're going to jump into here. We are going to be jumping in and doing our second live draft here. So whether you have comments here live, I'll check on my phone, or if you have comments after the stream is archived, ask away. We can discuss critiquing. I'm totally open to it, guys. I'm a Lions fan. I love hearing from other Lions fans. I'm not going to have my feelings hurt if you disagree with me or anything like that. I mean, this is just a fun thing for us to do together. So let's jump in here, and we're going to set it up pretty much the same way. We're going to just kick the speed down. We're going to keep all of these on default. And I didn't talk about this yesterday. So of course, oh, yeah, but you should put more care for positional value. Like, these default values already take that into consideration. This doesn't mean zero care. This doesn't mean max care. This is just, this is the midpoint. There already is care built into this particular slot, right? So I'm just leaving it on default for now. Maybe later on we'll start to mess with these a little bit more. But let's, of course, grab the Lions. We're going to make sure that Trevor Lawrence goes number 1. But other than that, we're just going to roll with it, guys. So let's do that. I will go full screen here so you can see this all a little bit better. All right, so let's start. Let's make sure they pick Trevor Lawrence. If not, we'll back up. Let's Trevor Lawrence go. So Trevor Lawrence, first pick. Again, I am not looking for the Lions to move up. There's just nothing here that I desperately need. If I were to look right now, I'm pretty much looking for one of those big receivers, including Pitts, by the way. A receiver, possibly Sewell at tackle. Micah Parsons, definitely in the mix. Possibly one of the quarterbacks if they fall. But other than that, it's probably one of those 4 things off the top of my head. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody really obvious, but we'll come to it when that time comes. But the beauty of picking 7th where the Lions are is we have some immediate holes, but we also have some very important secondary holes. And I don't mean the defensive backfield. I mean, like, instead of primary, we have kind of a second layer of needs that this team could easily fill with the 7th pick. We could also be trading back. So let's just kind of watch it unfold here. So the Jets go Zach Wilson. Okay. Yesterday we saw Justin Fields going there. So Justin Fields is the next best quarterback available. Your quarterback's not top of my list. So Jamar Chase, in my opinion, best receiver in the draft, goes to the Dolphins. It's making sense so far. The Falcons take Kyle Pitts, who is probably the 2nd best receiver in this draft. Again, listed as a tight end, but you guys go watch his film. The guy's he's a monster. He is not your prototypical tight end at all. He's a 6'6" lean receiver, basically. Very, very dominant player. Probably one of the big reasons why Kyle Trask had such a breakout year, why I'm not a huge Kyle Trask fan in this draft, because a lot of, to me, it was kind of Kyle Pitts. Kind of like the John Kitna, Calvin Johnson sort of thing, right? Anyway, let's, speaking of John Kitna, let's go to the Bengals. The Bengals pick up Penny Sewell. So this is looking good so far because there are, first off, Justin Fields is still on the clock. I'm sorry, still on the board. And so are Waddle, so is Smith, and so is Micah Parsons. So, I mean, we're going to have something that's going to fit one of these big needs fall into our lap, a linebacker or a receiver. I would probably lean more towards the receiver because there are some linebackers in the 2nd round that I actually like a lot. Whereas the receivers in the 2nd round, I actually am not a huge fan of. I actually like the receivers kind of more in the 3rd round range after these top guys go. So again, just something to think about. But let's continue on here. The Falcons are probably going to take Justin Fields. They do. So Justin Fields, I'm sorry, the Eagles go to, Justin Fields goes to the Eagles. So we are up. Micah Parsons is the best player on the board. And of course, the receivers after that is Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance a lot, but I wouldn't take him. Not with these guys on the board. So the question is, would we trade down? Because really, I could take any 3 of these guys, and I'll be a happy camper. So if we were to move down, pick 9, still guaranteed one of these guys. Be totally fine. Even pick 10, because pretty sure Denver is going to take Trey Lance. And so if we're still able to get, if there's a trade here that could have us moving down, so there's Denver, so that'd be 9 or 10. We would be left with whatever's there. So I don't think that's a bad idea. It's just a matter of what do we go down to. So let's see what we have here. So let me look up the Hill Draft value chart here. We can pull this up. And so the Lions have pick 7, of course, 426. We're going to pull out the calculator here even. And if we went down to 9 or 10, that's kind of what we're looking at. It's only a difference of a few points here. So, yeah, you're only looking at about 8-point difference. So it's not a huge difference. It's really going to come down to what Denver and Dallas have. So let's see. Let's just funnel Denver's picks because I think we'll at least get a 2nd rounder out of these guys. Okay, so this now highlights Denver's picks. They have the 40th pick. And they need to jump up. I mean, they're not jumping up a lot, so they're only jumping up about 26, what is that, 50, 60 points. So we'd probably get their 3rd, which could be a nice little tool to trade up. Could be a good tool to trade up. And then what about Dallas? I don't know, guys. Are we moving down for just an extra 3rd, which would, well, so we already have 2 3rd picks this year. The option is we get an extra 3rd that we could use essentially to move up. Say we take 2 of our 3 3rd round picks, we could move into the 2nd round, which is nice unless we have a guy here that we just really, really, really want. And I can tell you, I'm definitely more leaning towards one of the receivers. And there is a chance that we would lose out on both receivers if we traded down. And that does worry me a bit. We get Micah Parsons, but I don't know. There's some issues. There's some issues. Jalen Waddle had an injury. Devonta Smith, a little undersized. There are risks with either of these guys. And I am very, very torn. I like both of these receivers. Jalen Waddle, very, very complete receiver. You see just solid scores all 3 years. Look at the yards per catch. Just awesome, awesome stuff. Total package to be an elite deep threat, but he's more than just that. 5'10", 182. Now, Devonta Smith, obviously the Heisman Trophy winner. Is a little undersized, but again, 6'1", 175. You have to think maybe that's even exaggerated. Smith's size wasn't an issue in college. I don't see it being anything other than a minor blip in the NFL. So again, a touchdown machine here. Now, he had a lot of productivity through screens, I remember reading. Down here, it was a lot of schemed production, inflated 2020 numbers, led country in screens, right? So, I like Devonta Smith a lot. He was just a fantastic, exciting player to watch. Would add a ton of speed to the Lions. But if we look at these two grades together, let's pull these down. So again, the other Alabama receiver, freak athlete, if you extrapolated his 4 games out to a full season, he'd have gone 75 catches, almost 1,700 yards, and 12 scores. He's been in the 80s all 3 years. Devonta Smith, of course, had a pretty big breakout year. Has always been very, very consistent, though. So I wouldn't mind trading down, but I think I want to get my pick of receiver here. And we just don't know what these guys are going to do. So that's the question. Denver's going to probably take what's-his-face. That's why they want to trade up. And if we did that, we're at least getting one of the receivers. All right, let's do the trade with Denver. So we'll take 9. You take 7. And hey, it's a quarterback. I'll ask for your second. It might say no. All right, so that's a hell of a deal for us. We'll do it. We'll still get one of those receivers, assuming they take the quarterback. So Denver's on the clock now, and they do take Trey Lance. So we're in business here. We're in business. We just sit back and wait now. We have 2 seconds. We have 2/3. And we still are going to get the receiver we want. So as much as I like Micah Parsons, and I think he'd be a nice fit, I'm going to go Jalen Waddle. And he's going to give us just a fantastic option here. Again, we can just write Waddle's name in. We can slot him right into that offense, and bam, there we go. That's going to make a ton of sense for the Lions. He is our guy. And we got an extra second-round pick. So we'll let this go. Now, again, is there an option we could take some of this stuff and trade up? Possibly. I have my eyes set on a linebacker in the second round for sure. And then it's going to be a lot of kind of best available player probably in and around that. So we have actually back-to-back picks, 40 and 41. But again, we can move up. The 2 linebackers I'm looking at, unfortunately, we can't pull up the list here in the middle of the draft. But I know it's like, is it Jabril Cox or Jabari Cox or something like that out of LSU? I really like him. And I also like that there's a middle linebacker from, I'm trying to remember where it is now. His name's Bolton. I'm just trying to remember where he's from. Purdue or Wake Forest or some yellow and black team or gold and black team. Anyway, so those are the guys I'm kind of keeping an eye on that could be good fits in the second round. So we're going to hope and pray that one of those guys fall. If not, we could try to move up a little bit into the second round. So let's see, what just happened here? We just picked, Dallas is now going. They're going to take Smith. Nope, they took Micah Parsons. Surtain, so Smith is still on the board. Still on the board. By the way, I loved Christian Barmore. If I were to trade down in the first round, he's a guy I would have loved to try and grab. But we have to get somebody to throw the ball to. Otherwise, there's so much money invested in Goff, and there's so much. This franchise would benefit so much if they can get Jared Goff to rebound. And part of we have to get him some weapons there. And so getting Waddle is just it's essential in my opinion to do that, right? So just wanted to put that out there that I think as much as I liked Barmore and things like this, very, very happy with who we got there in Waddle. So let's continue. Devonta Smith goes to the Chargers. Vikings. I like Morig too. I mentioned there's some safeties in this draft. I worry like both TCU safeties are really, really good, and that actually had me worried a little bit. Like, were they just benefits of the scheme? Because they were like the 2 top safeties in the league, or sorry, in college football. Both were from TCU, which is kind of an interesting thing. So I was actually a little bit hesitant. I like that safety from Washington, but he's actually more of a slot corner who only played 1 game at safety, but they think he'll be a good safety. So Kwity Paye, another Wolverine there going to the Patriots. Still got 24 picks until the Lions are up again. Seen some, I mean, of course, really, really good players going off the board here, but nothing that we're like losing sleep over just yet. There goes Mac Jones to Washington. I liked Rashad Bateman a lot. He was another guy I was considering. I actually saw him as a very similar receiver to Jalen Waddle. If we were to move down even further, that's something that we could have done, but it was risky. In my opinion, I mean, if he gets picked, I could not come out of this first round, maybe the first 25 picks or 21 picks without getting one of the receivers, including Bateman, who were picked, and I was just too worried about trading down that low. I think it's that important to the success of the Lions here. Kyle Trask goes in the first round of the Colts. Wow. Elijah Moore. Asante Samuel Jr. just got picked by the Jets. I'm going to go back to full screen here. It's going to help you guys see this. So we're on pick 24 now with the Steelers. And they go J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Interesting linebacker here, by the way. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He is only like 215-pound linebacker or so. Really interesting player. And kind of sort of that, I guess, new age where it's kind of like, well, what is he? Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? But a guy who can play around. It says right here, like the new breed of defender. So really interesting guy. The Lions have actually had this guy mocked to him they've had Koramoah mocked to the Lions at pick number 7. I've seen him go that high. So super interesting there. But I do like that player. Again, if he were to fall. But he's the second linebacker taken, I believe. Obviously, Parsons went to the Cowboys earlier. But a nice pick there by Jacksonville. Bear Tucker, nice tackle going to the Browns. Kadarius Toney, good receiver. I'm glad we're out of that receiver. Okay, so there he is. There's Nick Bolton. That's so black and gold there is Missouri. So Nick Bolton is a guy I liked a lot. I was hoping he would have fallen to us in the second round. He's a first-round talent, so again, it makes sense that he didn't. But I don't love him enough that I needed to trade up to get him. I wish the PFF mock would let you kind of look around, because if I click this, see, it's going to take me away, and I don't want to do that. But I wish that I could go in and see like who's left, because I want to get Cox, but I know he's like a 45th ranked player, so I mean it's just too high right now. So we're going to just continue, because I still think we're going to be able to get him right here. I would think. If not, we don't want to reach too far, so I'm okay taking him a few picks early. If not, plenty of other holes. A linebacker I don't think is going to make or break this team. So we got the receiver is what's going to make or break this team this year. We're just getting some tools for Goff, and we did that. So last pick there, running back out of Clemson goes to Tampa, Travis Etienne. So now we're into the second round. We have 7 more picks until we go back-to-back. Jalen Phillips goes to Jacksonville. Wyatt Davis, the guard of Ohio State, to the Jets. Pat Freiermuth, tight end of Penn State, goes to the Dolphins. That's a good pick for them. Looks to be a really nice player. Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. All right, we're going to be up here, and our guy will be available. So is Zaven Collins, who is actually the highest rated player left. But he's a really big linebacker. He's like 260, I believe. 6'4", 260. So this is a guy, Bob Quinn would have probably jumped all over and loved, and Matt Patricia would have loved him. But I'm just not a huge fan of these guys unless there's something here that tells me he can play on the line or something. He has a rare physical set. Scheme will be important. He could be special in the right one. Freak of nature size. Edge rusher type skill set. That's nice. Movement skills like an undersized linebacker. Okay. But you just wonder how long that's going to last, right? I mean, a guy that big is not going to stay that quick for long. He looks like a good player. Not near the dominant tackler he should be. Could be more of a bully. Very scheme specific. Yeah, so without me knowing, he's poor man's Brian Urlacher. Without me knowing exactly how the Lions would use him, he's pretty much the same size as Ziggy Ansah. Boy, nice player, but I don't know. I know there's some other guys. I really like Samuel Cosmi, by the way. Real quick before we get into him, let's look at Zaven Collins' breakdown. He's only got the 1 grade. He dominates backs in blitz pickup, can chase them down in space. It led all linebackers in college football. So, I mean, he had a hell of a year. But again, this year is so weird because not all teams played a ton of games. He played at Tulsa. I don't know how many games he even played. Just a little bit worried about him. Samuel Cosmi, I do like. It's not showing me the last 3 years for some reason now. Or does he only have the 1? But I know I liked him because I've run a few of these now, and it's weird that it's not showing me like his full breakdown. Usually it shows a little bit more about these guys. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so he had really nice 3 nice scores here. He could be a decent pick. And again, we're picking back to back, so we can still get the linebacker and something else. His scores here, again, pretty solid. Boy, I wish Collins was about 20 pounds lighter. He does sound like an exciting player. Worst case, we take those 2 guys. Really, really nice value there. Carlos Bashan Jr. Again, pretty decent scores. I actually look more closely at this rating than I even do the 2020, so that's really nice to see. $112 pressures in the 2 seasons prior. 285-pound edge, though. So, I mean, we already have a guy like that in Flowers, who again won't be here forever. Here's that other TCU safety, by the way, really short though, 5'8". I'm just not interested in taking a safety. Landon Dickerson's a really nice interior lineman who I believe can play a few different positions. So, but he tore his ACL, and yeah, that does scare me. So we're going to stay away from him. Here's Jabril Cox. This is a guy I know I like. It would be a bit of a reach where we are, but across 2 different schools and schemes and 1 week of practice at the Senior Bowl, Cox has proven one thing wholesale. The man can cover. He was the only linebacker to break up multiple passes in the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, and he had 4 throughout the week. And he's always been consistent. Again, this is the year that I just like that he played. He's going to be, he won't be rusty or anything like that. And he's had good scores all the way through. So I like Cox. I know there's a linebacker rated higher than him, but I just like his size more. Ideal coverage traits. Again, we're talking about a division with, Aaron Rodgers in it for at least a few more years, and a passing league. I mean, getting guys who can cover, can also tackle. Press man against tight ends look like child's play. So, I mean, he can shut down tight ends. That's a huge trend in the NFL, obviously. I mean, I just really, really like this guy. He gets stuck in the mud a little bit against the run, but likely would have been a safety 15 years ago. But I like Jabril Cox. I mean, it fills a hole for sure. And then it's just going to be a matter of what do we do with that other pick with these back-to-back ones. Cosmi could be nice. It would have us moving either Vaitai inside or cutting Joe Dahl. So that pick makes a lot of sense. And again, I really like his scores. I mean, he's had some really nice, consistently gotten better. One of the most tested tackles in the country and has improved every single year. He allowed all of 8 pressures. I mean, that's awesome. And you need a right tackle who can pass block in today's NFL. A lot of teams are pass rushing from that other side now. Walker Little hasn't played a whole lot. He's hurt. Yeah, I think we're going to go Samuel Cosmi and then Jabril Cox here with the next pick. I want both these guys. I'm not even going to really look at a trade at this point. We still have 2 third-round picks. So before we make this last one, so we're going to put Cosme. I wanted to put him in here. We just know Cosme's in the mix. It allows us some flexibility with the team there. And then Jabril Cox is our next pick. So let's pause real quick. Let's add Cox into our mix here. And that takes care of that position. So, I mean, on defense right now, we're okay. Now, we got third-round picks. Maybe we grab a interior lineman or another corner. We have a lot of things we could do. On offense, just really anything. Could be a receiver, could be a quarterback. So these 2 picks have removed the handcuffs. I'm sorry, these 3 picks have removed the handcuffs. We get 2. I mean, I love all 3 players we've picked so far. They're playing at bigger schools, which I kind of like. I mean, they're going up against top competition. I am really, really happy. We basically got Cosme for free by just trading down. So, I mean, I'm pumped about that. Of course, we got 2 picks here in the 3rd, and we'll end up with 7 picks, which is nice. So, should give us a nice class. So right now, there's really nothing. As we look at our needs, we filled receiver. Still looking at quarterback, but there's nobody that I need to move up for or anything like that. Just looking on depth on offense, I'm certainly not moving up for that. On defense, we got a linebacker. We already have our safety. So yeah, I mean, we're just kind of sitting back now. We're just going to sit back and wait and see what comes to us here. We'll just keep an eye on the draft and see who goes. You can look there on the left. There goes that safety I like. I did like Molden out of Washington. He's a slot guy. He would have probably been the next guy I considered picking. There goes Zaven Collins to the Chargers. Ali McNeil is a nice nose tackle. Walker Little, a guy who's barely played. Andrew Sisko, safety out of Syracuse. Jalen Mayfield goes to the Bears. Terrence Marshall Jr. out of LSU goes to the Titans. So we got 17 more picks until the Lions are up. Liking this draft so far. We went offense twice and defense. Definitely building this team out in a way that makes sense. And I continue to draft offensive linemen, though, but that's okay. I like drafting linemen and defensive linemen. All right, we're 7 picks away. We are now into round 3 with Jacksonville picking. And there goes that second safety. Boy, he lasted all the way to the 3rd round, first pick. Washington out of TCU, that is. Najee Harris goes to the Texans. Back-to-back running back picks here. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be picking an interior defensive lineman here, possibly a receiver. So we have the 72nd pick, and then a few picks later, we have the 88th picks. We have about half of a round in between our 2 picks here. So again, I'm not really looking to make a trade just because it would be kind of a minimal thing, and I don't want to take the time to do it. But the best rated player by far is Javon Holland, a cornerback out of Oregon. It says all Holland did was produce, whether it was at safety or slot corner. Ooh, before opting out, Holland collected 11 pass breakups. So he didn't play, but he had 2 really nice years. I like that flexibility because maybe he ends up being the safety by the end of the season, or he ends up being the slot corner, and we can get rid of Coleman and free up some little bit of cap space that we could use in kind of late free agency to sign somebody. I like him. Marvin Wilson was not the same player he was in, we saw in 19 this past year after dropping weight to 305. He's just not much of an athlete for the position, but the guy who earned a 90.7 overall grade back in 2019 is still there somewhere. I mean, crazy, right? He had really nice couple of years there. What's his size? 6'5", 305. You could definitely play on the inside. Well, he's an exciting player. Can't really go wrong with either of these guys. But I like him, and I like the corner so far. Another interior lineman. Nixon started the season like a house on fire, 7 pressures against Purdue, and then 10 stops. His tape toward the end of the year didn't come close to matching the effectiveness. Again, good size. He's more of a 4th-round talent, so we're going to pass on him. And we're on pick 72. I mean, we got 2 guys who are still ranked in the top 60, top 65 here. I'll give the linebacker from Ohio State a quick look. Oh yeah, this is a guy he hasn't played a lot. So it's okay, but nah, I'd rather go with one of the others. Tyler Shelvin, I believe, is a pretty big defensive lineman, if I recall correctly here. The PFF site. It's taking a little bit of time to load here, but so again, we're going through the second mock draft simulator here on PFF. Yeah, he's a really, really big kid. I think is a little bit too big for what I'm looking for in a defensive tackle. And now we're getting above 75. So yeah, I mean it's really down to either this corner. So let's do this. Let's look and see what corners are left here and how much better. Oh wow, I like Shakur Brown, by the way. I like him a lot, but I like Javon Holland. There's a big drop before the next corner, and it's definitely a position that would make sense. So interior lineman 63. We got some other guys here. There's going to be some guys there. Still, I think we go Javon Holland. I think he's just too good. And maybe we luck out and Marvin Wilson's still sitting there when we pick at 88. Could also try to even trade up and get him, but again, I don't think it's that necessary. So we're going to go Javon Holland here. Again, I think a guy that can fit. We don't even need to write him in, but he could certainly free us up to move on from Coleman. He could also even jump up and play one of the safety spots if need be, it looks like. So yeah, I like him. Javon Holland it is. Let's just see how the draft goes here. We'll keep an eye out for that interior lineman. Really a 3rd round here. I mean, I don't see the point in trading up. If it was that much of a need, we would have already gotten it. Jalen Darden, I like him as a receiver. Kate Johnson, I also like as a receiver. A lot of receivers just went. There's another. I did like Tommy Tagai out of Ohio State. Oof, there we go. So he went to the Raiders, Marvin Wilson. Didn't quite make it to us. So there's a huge run on interior defensive linemen. So that's a bummer because that is something I would have liked to upgrade. Ooh, the Bears just took Jamie Newman. Didn't they also take Kyle Trask in this draft, or was that a different one I did? I'm going to check on that because, dang, I was hoping to get him later. I like that quarterback from Georgia. But I swear, let's go. I thought they took him. Or no, this is the one he went in the 1st round, though, Kyle Trask. So where did he go? Kyle Trask went, I know he went in the 1st round. Oh, yeah, to the Colts, 21. I've seen him go to the Bears in the 2nd round. Anyway, so let's see what we got left here. That linebacker is still there. Where the heck are we? So this is one of the picks we got in the Stafford deal. So Justin Hilliard, far and away the highest rated player according to PFF. Good size. Excellent all-around skill set that can fit any scheme. That's nice. I mean, we certainly could use some linebackers. He's far and away the best available player. Again, we're not going to find perfection here in the 3rd round, so he is certainly an option. I'd rather take him than a running back at this point, but I'll give him a quick look. Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. Taking forever to load here. Again, we have 2 running backs that I'm pretty comfortable with, and to me, picking one still even in the 3rd round at this point is a bit of a luxury for the Lions. And I just don't know. I like to get my running backs involved in the passing game, but I don't know if Dan Campbell's staff will, so it's hard to say. So we have a couple edge rushers. There's Shakur Brown. I like Rashad Weaver. He had some nice scores, sat out 2019. I think he was hurt. So he just tore his Achilles. That worries me tremendously. Let's check out Rashad Weaver. 6'5", 270, high floor edge, who should immediately translate in the run game. He could be a really nice complement with Julian Okwara, right? Okwara more of kind of the lengthy pass rusher. Rashad Weaver can do a little bit of both, but can maybe come in on kind of split time over there. He's got more size than Julian Okwara. I like Rashad Weaver. That pick makes some sense. I like him better than the linebacker. Might just go with him. I do not like Chaz Surratt. His scores were pretty rough. He's a second-round talent, developmental project. Legitimate reason for being behind the curve. I don't know what that is. Oh, he switched from quarterback. That's right. That's wild. Yeah, no thanks. Ben Cleveland's a good player, but we already grabbed a lineman here. So, guys, we're going to go Rashad Weaver. I like this draft a lot. We're getting some nice depth here. Getting some nice depth. I was hoping that quarterback from Georgia would have still been there in the 4th or 5th for us, but he went pretty early. Yeah, this draft's looking good for the Lions. Pretty happy with this one here. We'll tear through these last few rounds here because we're not going to be doing any more trades just yet. We'll just kind of see what else is going to be out there. What's nice about this tool that I've enjoyed a great deal is it lets you just get familiar with a lot of names that you may have otherwise never heard of until the Lions pick them. Just in the few times I've done this, I'm already feeling really comfortable just seeing some of these names and kind of knowing who they are and things like that. So pretty cool. I feel like we looked at Sage Surratt, didn't we? What was his story? Because again, I wouldn't mind. We need some depth at receiver still. And there's no cheaper depth than getting a guy in the draft. This could be a guy that could maybe be an upgrade over Cephas, who I think I mistakenly, I called him Quintez a few times. I've called him Quentin, I think, once or twice. Apologies, it's Quintez Cephas. Hopefully Surratt is faster than his page is loading. The bottom line, NFL is trending away from players like Surratt. He's his best fit man at being in the slot for some schemes. I mean, that's okay. That gives us some flexibility. I like his size. I wouldn't mind grabbing a nice physical receiver. Split some time with Cephas out there. What else we got? Who else is above him? I do not like that linebacker. Surratt's the second best player. Safety out of Illinois State. Not much on him. But could definitely use safety. Gosh, this is loading super slow. Let's just see what else is out here. Edge rusher, we already got. Can this guy play guard? Yeah, none of these are loading quick enough. I don't want to wait for these. Let's take a look at one more receiver just to give us a comparison. Pretty decent scores over the 3 years. Let's see if we can just take a look at his size. Also a pretty big receiver, 4th round talent. Nah. But I'm going to go that Surratt guy. I like him. So again, building out some depth. That's the first time we've taken a repeat position, but boy, Lions need some receivers, so I'm cool with that. We have one more pick. That's coming here in the 5th round. No 6th round pick, because that one went to Everson Griffin. 7th round pick, I'm not even sure. So this is our last pick here. Interior defensive lineman. He's far and away the best player. Trey Sermon would be an interesting pick. Big power back. We no longer have Bo Scarborough, I believe, on the roster. So Oh, there's a couple players here I like. Trey Sermon is an interesting guy. Wonder if we can pull up his write-up just for those who aren't familiar with him. So, thrown talent, Sermon is a solid if unspectacular back who can start in the league. He's not transforming any running games though, but he would definitely be a nice power back. Pretty slow. Interesting pick though, but I still think we're finding a power back in free agency rather easily. Grabbed an edge. I don't want to crowd that room too much. Yeah. Could definitely use an interior defensive lineman though. Really, really could use this guy. Good size. Penetrating 4-3 defense or any scheme that will let him attack off the snap. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I like him. I like him a lot. He is the best available player. I also like Hunter Long a lot. I'm going to come back to him here in a second. So Hunter Long, pretty consistent tight end over the years. Of course, we have Pro Bowl tight end Hawkinson, but I do think the Lions are going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. Says Long has very few holes in his game, but no one is going to be comparing him to Kittle or Kelsey anytime soon. But he's been really good. See a lot of top 10 scores here. Oof, he's a tempting pick too. That'd be 2 rookie receivers and a tight end coming in. I still think though it's more important to get a interior defensive lineman for some depth. And they still have some guys, there's still Kevin Strong. There's guys on this team, but 126 ranking. Yeah, we're going to go interior here. And that's it. Let's check out our grade here, but that's pretty well-rounded draft. Couple guys that it was probably a little too optimistic to think that they were going to fall to the Lions, but overall, I think I'm pretty happy with how this draft went. A lot of position diversity. We did not grab a quarterback, so the Lions will still need to go out and get a backup quarterback at this point. Maybe they don't cut Chase Daniel until after the draft or something like that, because Chase Daniel's okay as a backup, just makes a little bit more money. So we got a B+ for our trade with Denver. Jalen Waddle was our pick at number 9 after trading back. We basically got Samuel Cosmi for free, so we got an A- player for free there. So again, depth. 2 starters with Waddell and Cox, essentially. These guys right away can come in to start. Cosmi, who could start / immediate depth for sure. Same thing with Javon Holland. Potentially could start. He'd be probably pushing either Owarie or even in the slot over Coleman if they wanted to cut Coleman for some more cap space. So a really nice pick there. I think Weaver can complement really, really well with Julian Okwara. So again, really nice depth piece there that could technically start if Okwara is off to a slow start or is hurt. Sage Surratt, just a bigger receiver, gives us a few options. He's really our only big receiver on the roster, so I like that pick. And then is it Tufuli? Jay Tufuli, the interior defensive lineman out of USC. I think to get that value there at B- is pretty good. And overall, an A- draft there. So I'm pretty happy with how this draft looked. Again, if you just kind of see what the Lions are able to do here, we get 7 picks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with 1 trade with Denver. And hey, I'd be thrilled if the Lions did something like this. I mean, this is a full draft class of 7 players who legit would have an impact / role with this team right away. So really, really, really happy with that draft class if we were to come to something like that. So there it is. There's my rebuttal. I think, like I said, I wasn't thrilled with the first draft. I wanted to go into it with a little more homework done and go in and do a second edition of this here. So that was fun. I think I'm learning a lot about especially some of these late picks. It's fun to see the Lions logo next to some of these guys. I'd be pretty excited to see some of these guys. So yeah, we did a lot today. We went through and talked about kind of the coaching staff and how it's sort of maybe blinded us a little bit to some of the talent that could still be on this roster. We talked, again, that kind of Kool-Aid blue Kool-Aid idealism, I called it, of looking at what this team could be, looking at those PFF scores over the last 3 years. Of course, we redid the draft. We did a little bit of shopping with the very limited budget that the Lions will have in 2021. And the offseason starting in a few weeks, folks, so get excited for that. But hey, I appreciate you all checking this out. This is a lot of fun for me. I enjoy doing this here back-to-back days over the course of this weekend here. It's been really, really fun, and I super appreciate hearing from everybody. Let me know that they're enjoying it and so on. And yeah, I just want to say again, if you'd like, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll ping you the next time I'm streaming for this series. There's some other series I do as well. Also a big Tiger fan, Red Wing Piston fan too, so maybe we'll get into some stuff like that. But yeah, loving this a lot. I'm on Twitter at MikeLowe47. I am Mike Lowe, as I've mentioned, and I super appreciate it again, guys. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time on Lion Wait. See you.